If you're living in the UK, you've probably heard about the mortgage crisis caused by the rising interest rates. And, without a doubt, it's difficult for homeowners. But here's the thing, there's another crisis that's somewhat overshadowed by the mortgage crisis, and that's the rental market. It's crazy at the moment, especially in London. In this video, we'll dive into the UK's rental crisis, why rents are increasing, and what can be done to fix it. Okay, let's talk about the rental crisis. Rental prices in the UK were already pretty steep even before the pandemic hit. And imagine that good, hardworking tenants, even with decent jobs, were struggling to pay their rent and save up enough money for a house deposit. It felt like they were stuck in a never-ending loop of renting. And guess what? Young people took the hardest hit. They're the ones who are more likely to rent, and it's no surprise that there is even like a word for it. There's a term for it that's called generation rent. On average, renters were paying 23% of their income in rent, and in London, that's almost 40%. And then there was a pandemic. It calmed the rental market for a bit. Some landlords I know even offered rental reductions to support their loyal and good tenants. Things calmed down for a bit because no one was moving around. But as soon as the stamp duty was introduced, the housing market went into overdrive. A lot of landlords decided to sell their properties, which meant less supply and higher prices. We're talking 10% yearly increase in rents. And that's not a small change because you were already paying a lot. In fact, in London, the rental increase was even more than the 10% average. It was somewhere between 15 to 20%. And to make things even worse, tenants are dealing with dampness, mold, substandard conditions. I mean, even the houses are not that nice. And, I've seen lots of people who are depressed, stressed, due to the condition that they're in. And there's not much that they can do about it. Because if they complain, they're just going to get a notice and landlord's going to easily find another tenant. Okay, so that's the other side of the picture. But let's sort of dive and sort of investigate why this is happening. I think there are three reasons for it. And the first one we can't ignore, it's the interest rate. When interest rates go up, it affects the rental market in many ways. Okay, the house prices are going down, but banks aren't lending money. So it discourages first-time buyers from getting a mortgage, and even more people end up renting. Landlords with mortgages also pass on their increased cost to tenants. Landlords would say it's a business. So if my expenses are going up, I'm going to increase your rents. So it's a bit of a domino effect hitting people who are relatively poor and young the hardest. The second one is the pandemic. I think it just messed up the market big time because people, for a while, they stopped moving around. There was a reduction in the rent that you were paying. But then all of a sudden, it just sort of went through the roof. So things weren't stable during that period. And the third one, and I think that's the main reason, is that we simply don't have enough houses. The UK needs around 250,000 new houses every year. And, we're not building enough houses. And with the interest rates, there is, a less of a demand, or, banks aren't giving out money for houses, which means that the housing activity as a whole has slowed down. So this is going to make things worse. And this shortage has pushed more people into the rental market, and it sort of adds fuel to the crisis. Let's talk about solutions, right? So it's not all bad and we can do something about it. Of course, there is no sort of magic solution. It's going to take time. But let's talk about solutions and what can be done about it. In short term, the government's policy is to come up with new rules, rental reforms, to give tenants some power when they are negotiating with landlords. One part of that is the abolishment of Section 21, and it comes with some other rules as well that landlords and tenants will have to follow. It's been delayed a few times, so we don't know exactly when that's going to kick in, but we know that that's on the cards. The other idea is rental controls. So Scotland tried, but honestly, they don't have the best record. And rental controls can backfire. You have lots of landlords who aren't happy. If you look at sort of, the social feed, they're saying, I'm done renting houses and I'm just going to sell, which means that landlords, due to this new rule, are exiting the market, which means less supply, more demand. So it's just going to make things even worse. And if the problem is rental prices, then it's going to drive up the prices, not down. So it can backfire. It's a very risky approach from a legislative point of view. So these are the short-term solutions, right? The short-term solutions are they will pass new rules to give tenants some power. There are new rules coming in terms of the conditions of the property. Rental controls is one of them. But in the long term, and that's a bit more permanent solution as well, is to build more houses, right? The housing shortage benefits homeowners and landlords, right? Because if I'm a homeowner and if there aren't enough houses, then what I have automatically becomes valuable, right? And the worse the problem gets, the more money I'm going to make, in the process. Even though we need houses, if you ask people in the area, so people who already live in that area, if they support a new planning permission for more houses, you will find that a large majority of homeowners will actually find any sort of reason to actually reject that planning permission. They don't want new houses. So, it actually damages the process even more, and then we are further from the solution because of that. UK rental crisis is a complex problem, but there are steps that we can take to make things better. The government is working on it, and landlords aren't sort of entirely happy with all those changes, and it's a tricky one, right? So there is no quick solution, but in the long term, they need to incentivize house building exercise. It creates more assets, it increases supply, and that is the only way out of this problem. So although I can understand where sort of landlords and tenants are coming from, we need to find a balance, a belief that supports both sides. We need landlords and we need tenants, but we want to make sure that we come to a sort of a happy compromise between the two parties. So yeah, that's all for now. I hope you found this video useful. If you like to stay connected, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I make regular videos, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.